This is, we've got a huge day planned today. We've got some top investors. We have Guy Willett from A16Z. We have, giving a keynote, we have some very top projects in the DePIN space. So besides Guy, we have a whole panel of investors. After me, Sylvan from Parasail will be speaking, and a number of leading projects and founders. So excited that you are here. We're very excited about this space. I'm Tom Trowbridge. I'm a co-founder of Fluence, and we're excited to put on these DePIN days to basically further the DePIN ecosystem, make sure everyone knows what's happening in DePIN, and advance the general understanding of this incredibly exciting ecosystem. So I will start. These are obviously our partners, and so I mentioned Spheron and Parasail, but we're excited for all of the partners here, which are many of the top projects in the space. Hopefully this is not the first DePIN Day many of you have attended, and it certainly should not be the last one. So keep that in mind. We're doing one again in Denver after this, and also in Dubai around Token 2049. But let's talk a couple minutes about DePIN. So DePIN is not a meme. And so if you think, and that may be a bad thing right now, given how well Doge has performed over the past months, especially since the election. Maybe we want DePIN to be a meme, but I think it's important to realize this is a very different sector. And a lot of crypto actually is very meme-like, right? We've gone from TPS being the metric to community size being the metric to number of developers to the number of Telegram users to the number of you pick a number of geographies you're in, and DePIN is different. DePIN is actually, the sector overall is really generating some real revenue and some real specific token economics, which I think is going to drive this sector substantially. And so what is it? Just to level set for everybody here, a lot of projects use the term DePIN. DePIN are decentralized physical infrastructure networks. And so this is a definition that we've created. I think there is no one definition, but I think this really works. It's crowdsourced physical infrastructure, and it's connected in a network to provide a service, and it's secured and incented with crypto economics. So I think that encompasses the core components of DePIN. You kind of got to have all three of those in order to be a real DePIN project. Ideally, you also have decentralized governance as well. Fluence has that, but there's plenty of crypto projects and plenty of DePIN projects which do not yet have decentralized governance that may or may not become or be a core component of DePIN, but you clearly need to have those three components. And so I think that is, just when we look at the ecosystem, keep those in mind. How big is this ecosystem? What is it? Well, first I want to divide it, not just me, but I think Masari also divides it between two segments. There's the physical resource networks and the digital. And the digital is what a lot of people in crypto, I think, have historically focused on. That's projects like Filecoin, there are storage networks, like Akash, which is compute, like Arweave, et cetera, like Fluence, which is compute. That's digital resource networks. These are going after kind of the cloud ecosystem, and the cloud is an enormous industry comprised of compute, storage, CDNs. A number of different kind of components when you decompose the cloud. This is enormous, and I think we cannot get to a fully Web3 world unless these digital resource networks scale and are used at scale. Otherwise, we're dependent on the cloud. So that has to work. The physical resource networks are kind of a newer component of DePIN, more or less, with the exception potentially of Helium, which is obviously a physical resource network that was one of the early ones. But these are in energy, wireless, geospatial, mobility, and I think some of these are ones where we're going to see revenue and have seen revenue very soon, and I think are really exciting. In this area, the physical side is also exploding. I think the physical side also is what is going to make this sector understandable and comprehensible to the wider public. And so the physical side, I'm excited about, and I think the press is going to be very excited about. because there'll be revenue and clear use cases and clear tangibility of what they are. And a lot of that tangibility has to do with the miners and the service. And I think what's interesting about the miners and the service of this is over time, things become institutionalized, not just in crypto, but particularly in DePIN. So if you look at Bitcoin, and I think a lot of this sector follows the Bitcoin trajectory, people started mining Bitcoin in their homes, on their PCs, and over time, it's moved entirely to really professional data centers. Publicly traded companies focused just on Bitcoin mining with huge data centers and world-class infrastructure. That's been its evolution over the past pretty much 10 years. If you look at the DePIN space, that same thing is happening. HiveMapper started off with individual drivers buying dash cams, plugging them in and adding data to the network. That still continues, still goes on, but where is it going? Fleets are adding these cameras. And so you have taxi fleets, garbage truck fleets, delivery fleets that are putting these dash cams in. They put them in not just almost for other documentation reasons, and the crypto is sort of a secondary component of it. So you see that move. Demo, same thing. You put your device in the car to share data so you can get cheaper insurance, et cetera, and that starts with individuals, but soon you're gonna have rental car companies do that because they wanna understand what's going on with the car, wanna understand what's happening with drivers, so you see fleets going there as well. Filecoin started with consumers storing data on their CPUs. That's moved to purpose-built data centers just focused on storage for Filecoin, and we were very familiar with that. And you have Aether and Akash start off with individual users, and I think this is not quite as clear. I mean, Aether has announced the Aether Edge, which is by definition a retail CPU initiative, but they also have CPUs from data centers and GPUs from data centers. Helium from individuals to actual companies deploying the Wi-Fi routers. XNet as well, homes and businesses to franchises with multiple locations that are providing cellular offload. I mention this because Fluence, we just started with world-class data centers. And the reason we did that, we are a decentralized compute platform. So we provide compute, which is what underlies, it's part of that cloud, the digital side of DePIN. And our perspective was, in order to have businesses use us, they need to know that their compute is happening in the similar facility or the same facility as leading Web 2 companies. And so the infrastructure and the CPUs that are on Fluence right now are almost all at Tier 4 data centers around the world. And that makes the sale process and the adoption much easier. We will add support for other infrastructure later, but first I think we have to prove our reliability, and it's easier when we can point to that. Here are some DePIN subsectors. We talked about this a little bit, but I think in the physical world, there is a large number that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Decentralized weather, where you buy a mini weather station, deploy it, and a network of weather stations is then providing more granular, precise, and updated data than you get from the large government-owned weather stations out there. So there's a lot of interesting points, and you get to a fascinating value proposition. And so this, I think, is what really drives DePIN and what's going to be interesting down the road. So Spexy doesn't have a token yet, but Spexy does drone mapping and drone imaging. Basically, the drone goes up, images, and the thing that's fascinating is it's 3 times better resolution than from a satellite. You can also map about 10 times faster than if you use an airplane. So if you want to map an area, you have to, and you want one of the companies that does it via airplane, it takes a certain amount of time. They can do it much, much faster. They also can do it regardless of weather. You can do it with cloud cover, et cetera. And it's half the price. So you end up with a 60 times value proposition. That is very compelling. HiveMapper is 40 times more updated than the Google option and is cheaper. GeoNet is, instead of 3-meter resolution for location, think about your phone, your Google Maps, that's about 3-meter resolution in terms of precision. Using the RTK network, Geode has 3-centimeter precision. and it's 1/10 the cost, right? So if you look at these, you see, I think what drives adoption is not 20% better, 30% better. It is massively better, and that's what I think gets DePIN adopted, is this level of value, which is compelling, and I think comes from these crowdsourced networks. So when you're not using, you don't have to spend to create these networks, right? These networks are cheaper partly because the crowd is funding the CapEx. No company has to pay for this, so that's why the pricing is much, much cheaper thanks to the token economics. And that's why I think DePIN is not a meme, because these businesses are actually generating the value and have the value proposition. What that also comes to is how the token economics fit in. And if you go back to these in particular, like for example, whether it's GeoNet or Demo, when the network gets revenue, that revenue is used to buy the token and burn it, right? So revenue has a direct link to value. And I think that's particularly why I view DePIN not as a meme, because revenue is going to flow directly to token value. And I think that starts next year when revenue really starts to kick in for some of these projects. And then it doesn't matter if no one else knows about the token, because you have a buyer. And that buyer is the company, because it's getting revenue. And no one else buys it. You've got one buyer coming in and buying that token and burning it. That is very, very powerful. And I think that's going to start to kick in and is going to really wake people up to how the DePIN token economics are super powerful. So, and that's also why there's a number of VCs very focused on DePIN. EV3 will be speaking here today. They're the largest DePIN-focused fund, a huge amount of investments in the space, but look right behind it is Multicoin. Multicoin, arguably one of, if not the most prominent funds in the space right now, obviously made famous by their significant bet on Solana. They have a huge amount of DePIN exposure. So you don't have to believe me on it, but you can look at them, and then you obviously will know A16, who will be here as well, DCG, Polychain, et cetera. All of these top investors have DePIN exposure, and that's only increasing. And you can see here's just an overview of the ecosystem, kind of top capital raised by DePIN projects. What I think is particularly notable here is the top two raised that money quite a while ago. And so DePINs now don't require that much capital because the infrastructure is largely crowdfunded. So if you look beyond those top two, they're far less capital raised, and I think that's also because the capital isn't needed for these businesses, which makes them that much more, I think, compelling and interesting. So I don't think you're going to see massive rounds in DePIN projects because I don't think it's necessary. And that's why interest in DePIN is booming. There are reports talking about it since 2022. We've got exchanges writing about DePIN, from Binance to Coinbase. I think we'll see others. Obviously, KuCoin did it as well, and more research on it. Media is ramping up coverage. You'll see plenty more stories on it. There's also more focused, dedicated podcasts to it. And and that's why we're creating these DePIN days, to get people together, give the projects and the ecosystem the opportunity to speak about DePIN and to present what they are doing. This is a handful of the events. We've actually done a couple more. We did one in Korea. So this is a handful of them, which we've been excited about and keep working on. You can see we've done smaller, those are the big ones. We've done smaller events with Fluence and DePIN kind of all over the last 2 years, and we're going to try to keep this pace up. And if you don't get enough from today and you want more, well, you've got a podcast for that. And so this is the DePIN podcast, which I host. I think we've had 30 episodes with pretty much everybody you're going to hear today, and many, many more who are not in Bangkok. So it's DePINed, DePINed.xyz is how you find it. And you'll find, pretty much every project you've heard, and more are coming. So definitely check that out. But thank you for coming. And I would like to welcome everybody, and I'd like to welcome Sylvain to the stage for his presentation. So welcome, Sylvain.